What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Earlier today, I dropped my first predictive Steelers 7th round mock draft over on allsteelers.com. I wanted to get on here and kind of chop it up with the YouTube subscribers, kind of explain, why I went certain directions in the mock draft. So just before we get started, please make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll drop the link to the actual article too if you guys want to reference back to that as well. So all right, let's get started. So I did one more mock draft earlier in the cycle, but it was more about like what I would do now that we've got pro days and all that stuff completed. I wanted to go ahead and drop a predictive mock. This is just not necessarily who I would take in these spots, but who I think the Steelers would probably take. So that's kind of the direction I'm going with this mock draft. But I wanted to talk through, the picks, strengths, weaknesses of these guys, why I think they make sense at these spots, and then just kind of go throughout the mock draft. First round, pick 17, Dawand Jones, tackle from Ohio State. Like I put in here, I'm not really sure if there's a single prospect in this entire class that the Steelers have showed more interest in, more than Dawand Jones. He was only there at the Senior Bowl for one day. But they got the chance to see him there. They met with him formally at the NFL Combine. They sent the house to his pro day. Mike Tomlin, Pat Mayer, offensive line coach were there. And then now they're bringing him in for a top 30 visit. The interest, is off the charts. I mean, there's a lot of smoke there. Of course, Paris Johnson Jr., they were probably there to get a good look at him too. But just the odds of him being available at 17 probably aren't that great. So, in terms of strengths for Jones, just the incredible length stands out. The frame is enormous. I think he's 6'8", 374 pounds. He has 36 3/4 arms, something like that. Just an absolutely ridiculous wingspan. The way that he uses that, he's able to establish first contact, on edge rushers or, run defenders. He's able to basically dominate reps and, control defenders by just engulfing them with this length. I actually think he does a good job like getting out of his stance, even though he does have some range deficiencies, which we can talk about in a little bit. Ohio State asked him to do a lot of different stuff in terms of, getting out in space. They would occasionally ask him to pull, get on the perimeter. He actually does that pretty well for a guy his size. I know he didn't test very well. He ran like a 5'3", 5'40" or whatever. But when he gets on the move, like he can be a pretty good weapon for you. Just in terms of like things that I'm a little bit worried about, I think that he could potentially be, at a disadvantage in some matchups. The things that I think he doesn't do well right now is just anytime he gets himself into a compromising position, edge rushers, they come off hard with their first step or two and then spike inside on him or anything like that. Or when he's asked to, process games up front, like anything that asks him to like quickly change directions, it's not there for him. And I'm not really sure if it's going to be there. It just might just be an athletic limitation that he'll have to deal with. But I do think that Jones can be a fine starting right tackle in the league that offers a decent amount of upside. I don't know if he's ever going to be an elite tackle, but I think he could be a good one with his unique build. This could be a little bit early for some people with Jones. I'm not really sure. I know that it seems like late first, early second is where he's being mocked in a lot of mock drafts that I feel like I see from the big draft media guys. But it wouldn't surprise me if Pittsburgh just pulled the trigger here. And Andy Weidl, he's taken his approach from Philly, addressed the trenches. They signed a couple guards. They've shown a lot of interest in addressing the offensive line. So I think that this, makes sense. He's a guy that, maybe he doesn't start as a rookie or, you bring him in to push Chukwuekorfor for, Dan Moore and just get the best two guys on the field. And I think that would be an intriguing proposition for the coaching staff for sure. Second round pick 32, Emmanuel Forbes. So talk a little bit about Forbes. We know how much the Steelers really care about ball skills, right? The cornerback they brought in free agency, Patrick Peterson, I think he's second among active players right now with the amount of interceptions he has over his career. Forbes has some of the best ball skills, maybe the best ball skills in this entire class. He is the FBS record holder for pick sixes, 14 career interceptions. He met with the Steelers formally at the NFL Combine, has a top 30 visit schedule with them. Forbes, unbelievably fast. 4.35, 40-yard dash, I think, at the Combine. That definitely matches what's on tape. And beyond just being incredibly straight line fast, Forbes also has an insane amount of recovery speed. Whenever he gets himself into compromising situations early in the rep where, he misses a jam in press, or, he takes a false step out of a transition or bites on a double move, like, he has the necessary foot speed to get himself back into phase, which, is really intriguing for a cornerback, because all the time, like, you're not going to be able to play things perfectly. You're going to get beat. You're going to give up plays. How can you get yourself back into the rep? And he does that really well. Instinctual play recognition skills. I think back to that pick six he took back against Kentucky. That was really impressive. He basically jumped a screen route, ended up taking it back for a touchdown. Forbes also has 32-inch arms, so it's that length, it's difficult to throw over him. You can use that as a weapon. He'll use that to his advantage at the line of scrimmage and jam situations too. He's definitely unique. He is a historical outlier in terms of, his profile. He is the second lightest quarterback ever in the mock draftable database, only 166 pounds. They said he was 170 pounds at his pro day. I would imagine he's probably going to play at 165, 170, at least early on, or, until he actually gets, played out of that weight, I guess you could say. Just in terms of the negatives for him, he can be grabby at the break point. He is, he's taller and lanky, so he's a little like high hipped, can be a little leggy with his transitions. He's over aggressive at times. You will frequently see him peeking into the backfield. He'll let guys kind of run past him, double moves, just not playing top down in zone coverage. Quarterbacks, they'll, pump fake his way or give him like shoulder fakes to kind of move him. He's just an aggressive player. I think he's going to be a very high variance player. You're going to see a lot of highs and probably a lot of lows, especially early in his career as he makes that transition. But I do think he brings, cornerback 2 starting upside, and the ball skills, the playmaking ability that the Steelers really covet at the position. He's played a lot of top competition in the conference. Obviously, you think about all the receivers that they've played over there over the past couple of years, a lot of first round caliber guys. So I definitely think Forbes, even if, it takes him a second to transition, you just got to be patient with him. And I think he'll figure it out. And he's an interesting player, to have Patrick Peterson kind of take under his wing early on. So I appreciate, Forbes. He plays hard no matter what, man. He's a gambler. He's a playmaker. He's going to drive you crazy at times, but I do think the Steelers obviously are, high on him. I think they're showing him a lot of interest. And I just think the fit here kind of makes sense. Second round pick, Gervon Dexter from Florida, kind of sticking with the theme of kind of addressing the trenches early in this draft. Dexter has basically all the tools you could possibly want in a defensive end or defensive lineman. He's met formally with the Steelers Combine, top 30 visit as well. When you watch Dexter, it's really easy to get intrigued by the flashes or the highs on tape. He's an incredibly athletic human being. I think he ran like a 4.88 40-yard dash at the Combine with like a pretty quick 10-yard split as well. When he gets going and he gets off the ball good, he can quickly slice into the backfield. He can chase quarterbacks down. I think the motor could be maybe a little bit more consistent, but when it's on, when he's running hot, I think that he does a lot of good things. He plays a solid leverage and, can use his hands to defeat blocks quickly. When he lands his hands, he has, stack and shed kind of capabilities there. I think the biggest thing for Dexter is that we haven't really seen him be all that productive for long stretches of time. And that's the kind of disappointing thing. I think a lot of people, myself included, were anticipating that he was kind of going to break out this past season, and it just never really happened. So, he was moderately productive, but, not nearly as productive as like his athletic profile or the flashes would kind of indicate. He doesn't get off the snap quickly every play, which is kind of concerning. I'm not sure if that's, a coaching thing, if he's being asked to, read blocks instead of just going and penetrating and getting upfield. But he really needs to add to his pass rush plan too, and his overall toolkit as a rusher. I got to see some type of like moves or pass rush plan. There's just too often where he's just coming off the ball, and it just doesn't look like he has any clue of like what he's trying to do out there. He's just kind of just trying to finesse guys with his athleticism, or overpower guys. And in the league, it just doesn't work like that all the time. Like even their freaky athletes, like everybody's a great athlete in the league. But, Pittsburgh, like I said, they gave Larry Ogunjobi a 3-year deal. So they view him as a long-term foundational piece on the defense. Cam Hayward, he's not going to be able to fend off Father Time for much longer, man. I mean, he's getting up there in age. Carl Dunbar, he's gonna look at, trying to get another guy that can, come in there and be that next piece for the next wave of, Steelers defensive linemen. So I think Dexter makes a lot of sense if you're looking for like a high upside guy who, may just take a little bit in terms of his transition to the league. But, they need depth there anyway. Like there's not really anything behind Larry Ogunjobi or Cam Hayward to get really excited about. So I think that's, notable to bring that up as well. Next pick. This is a guy I really, really like. Dorian Williams for Tulane. We've seen the Steelers, they've completely overhauled that, inside linebacker room, out Miles Jack, Devin Bush. They bring in Cole Holcomb, Landon Roberts. I don't think they're done adding to that room either. I just don't. They met with Williams at the combine, but they also sent linebackers coach Aaron Curry to his pro day. Those pro day visits are notable, especially when you get a position coach that goes out there to see somebody like that. I think it's definitely worth taking note of. Last year, DeMarvin Leal, Dunbar went and saw him at his pro day. We think about George Pickens, receivers coach went out to see him at his pro day. So there's some dots to be connected between these two guys. Williams, he's undersized. He's only, 6 foot, a little over 6 foot, I think, 228, 230 pounds. So he's undersized, but just incredible speed. I mean, I think he ran a sub 4.5 40-yard dash. He can really run and hit, man. Really good in zone coverage. Like he was one of the, if you are a big fan of like Pro Football Focus grades or anything like that, he was one of the highest graded linebackers or off-ball linebackers in the nation last year in terms of like in pass defense. So I like he has good length to him, plays like super, super hard, red hot motor. He offers some physicality in terms of at the tackle point. So you'll see him, pop tacklers, deliver some violence on contact, knock ball carriers' helmets back. Like I just like how he plays, man. In terms of the negatives or the things that he still has to work on, man, like just because he's so slight in frame, I don't know if he's ever going to be a consistent like stack and shed guy. When blockers are able to get to the second level, you'll frequently find him unable to kind of shed blocks. He's a guy that you have to keep clean. And I think you just have to really understand that, he is a run and hit linebacker. If you don't keep him clean, and those big offensive linemen that have 100 pounds on him are able to get their hands on him, he's not going to win a ton of those battles. Now he'll sometimes, be able to slice in there or, use his finesse to, kind of get around blockers before they can get their hands on him. But, just at the point of attack, like he's just not one of those guys that's going to be consistently great there. But if you follow me on Twitter, y'all know, like, I don't really like this inside linebacker class. I think it's pretty bad. But this is one of the guys that I can get on board with in the 3rd or 4th round. I think that Williams can play a solid role. He's a guy that, early in his career, like you can still get him in there on passing situations. The Steelers were using Robert Spillane in those situations last year. He's gone as well. So, Williams could immediately come in and be that like dime backer type linebacker in pass situations if you just want him in there for like coverage or, to go sideline to sideline. So like Williams a lot. He's one of my favorite guys that I think that they've shown like a good amount of interest in. So I hope that, maybe comes to fruition. Round 4 pick 120, Jonathan Mingo, Ole Miss. Kind of weird. Like I went into the cycle thinking that the Steelers were going to address a receiver by the end of day 2, and maybe they pick Mingo and the third round. But he's the guy that I think makes maybe the most sense out of the guys that they've shown interest in, just because he's that power slot type. He's a perfect complement to what Calvin Austin the third kind of brings them. Complete different body type, obviously, but just a really interesting player to me. Ole Miss this past season, you just look at the frame, 6'2", 220. I mean, they moved him around. He played some on the boundary. He played some in the slide. I watched them line him up at like tight end to just try to get him in advantageous situations. And, he thrived there. So things I like about him, just from a physique or physical standpoint, he stands out as like kind of a man amongst boys. He's really tough for smaller defensive backs to get on the turf. I thought that he did a good job, lowering his drop percentage. He's still a little bit of a body catcher, some concentration drops. But overall, the drop percentage dropped while his production, kind of went up. So I like that a lot. Honestly, one of the things that I think drew me to him most was like just how he attacks as a blocker. The perimeter run game, they'll use him on the point as the point man on screens. This is something the Steelers really have not had the past couple seasons, and it's maddening trying to watch, like Chase Claypool was a terrible blocker despite him being just massive. So I think, Mingo can really help you there too. Like you can even throw him screens. You can getting the ball in jet sweeps, like whatever you want to do. Like, I think Mingo can do that for you. I think he's an improving route runner. But, it did take him a while to break out in college. The route tree that he was asked to run at Ole Miss, man, it's very bland. I mean, it's basically hitch, slant, bubble screen, vertical. I mean, it's just the Lane Kiffin's offense in terms of it's not pro style at all. So, he's definitely a work in progress as a route runner, but I do think that there's upside and he'll flash there if you really watch the tape. I think that this is just one of those things where you just want to add competition to the room. They don't have a true slot receiver right now. Calvin Austin didn't play there at Memphis. Mingo's played there a little bit more in college than Austin did in college. But you kind of just maybe like a 2 dogs, 1 bone kind of situation, where you just let these guys kind of hammer it out in training camp, see who wins the job. But either way, I think they're a good complement for one another. So this is an offense that really needs to create more splash plays next year. And I think Mingo he can do that, but Austin can do that as well. So I really like the tandem there as complements to, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, the guys that they already have. So we have a huge gap here. I mean, they go like 110 or 115 picks without a selection. This is where you're just looking at like dartboard throws, kind of difficult to, figure out who they could potentially be looking at here. I went with Starling Thomas from UAB. If you guys haven't seen Thomas, like my first exposure, honestly, was at the Shrine Bowl. And I actually like him more than this selection, but it just seems like I'm trying to see. Haven't seen him in like mock drafts, so I don't know what his stock is. I think it's going to be on day 3, like Pro Football Focus, like has him like in the 200 range. I don't know where he goes. It's difficult to project at this point, but I really think he's definitely a good dart throw. At the East-West Shrine Bowl, man, like y'all know like how one-on-ones work. They heavily favor the offense, but I thought that Thomas, like he won some reps, and then like every rep that he technically lost or gave up a catch, like he was right there at the catch point. And he was right there being right in that hip pocket. He was always in phase. He's insanely fast, 4.28 40-yard dash at his pro day, I think last month. So for legit like 4.3 speed, and it shows up like when you watch this dude play. I thought the short area burst, like out of his transitions, just how explosive he is when he's asked to like click and close or playing off coverage. Really good hips, zero wasted movement with his footwork, and I really like that. Just in terms of things a little bit concerning, he's only about 5'10", 190 pounds. He played almost exclusively on the boundary too, so like he's probably going to transition to a slide at the next level. So like that's, a transition in and of itself. Like not only you transition to a league, you're learning a new position. You got more two-way goes in the slot, different body types in there, different route tree. So that'll be a transition for him. But I do think, just his change of direction, his athletic profile, fits pretty well in there. He is a little bit grabby through his routes. He was highly penalized over the course of his career. Um, I just look at the Steelers roster right now. I don't know who's playing slot corner. They let Cam Sutton walk in free agency. Arthur Mollett is like more of like an early down kind of run specialist. And then like you look at last year's games, man, like you look at like the Bengals game, like the Bengals were targeting him over, like Mollett over and over and over. They were hunting him with matchups. They were putting T. Higgins in there in the slot and just isolating him against Mollett, and they were just going after him. So I think the Steelers have to add somewhere, whether it's, earlier in the draft or, a free agent. They got to bring in somebody else that's capable of playing the slot. Maybe they, rotate Patrick Peterson in there against like tight ends, but I think, smaller guys, shiftier guys are going to give him some problems too. So Thomas is an intriguing dark throw. He's also got special teams experience. If you're a guy that's on the fringe of making the 53-man roster, you better play special teams. He's returned punts and kicks in college. So really like that about him as well. And then just, kind of to kick it off or finish it off here, Daniel Scott from California, safety, just kind of sticking with the theme. He was a top 30 visit for the Steelers as well. That was reported. He's one of the older prospects in the class, turned 25 during his rookie season. But he really didn't break out until 2021. And then these past two seasons, he really showed some nice production, 3 picks each of the past 2 seasons. So kind of sticking with the theme of ball skills. I thought that he stood out to me at the Senior Bowl. Just in terms of, in one-on-ones, he has some really good reps, staying in the hip pocket at receivers and tight ends. 4.45 40-yard dash, 39.5-inch vertical jump. That doesn't hurt. He was a team captain. The main intrigue with a guy like Scott is like he's been a 4-phase special teams guy in college. And again, like when you're in the 7th round range here at the very, very end of the draft, like you're looking for guys that can contribute in any way, shape, or form. And I think, Scott definitely has that ability. The one thing, like, I think that's just glaring with him that he needs to work on is just like he's really, really out of control as a tackler. So really would like to see him come to balance more, keep his feet underneath him more, just miss fewer tackles in the open field. But you look at a guy like Trey Norwood, like his role was essentially, eliminated last season, and Scott could, potentially push him off the roster, give you another option back there, both safety spots. So really like, him as a late round flyer / priority free agent. So overall, the theme of the mock draft, man, was like, I just wanted to, I do see them addressing the trenches early, but I also see them, adding playmakers in the secondary. And those were kind of the 2 main themes of the mock draft. And I think that just based on, their pro day circuit visits, their top 30 visits, who they showed interest at the combine. I think all of that stuff like really makes a lot of sense. So be sure to, if you stayed through the whole time, I appreciate you guys. Be sure to stay and like the video. If you liked the video, drop a comment for who you guys want to see the Steelers draft, or if you guys have a mock draft y'all want me to check out, I'll look at those as well. Otherwise, I'll publish, the link of the mock in the comments as well for you guys to go check out. If y'all don't want to watch the video, you just want to read again, and just be sure to subscribe to the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you guys.